Jim, how come you held on to this? You didn't used to do that.
I got a hang on there.
Okay. So we've got Terry here. I didn't see, but you ready to read. We have this set message and one more in the Faith of Abraham series. This is part 15, and we had Easter Mist sermons in the middle of that, and then everything else. And we're going to a chapter today, and we're going to look at the fact that we've seen everything that Sarah did with Abraham. She's been a faithful wife. She's been with him the whole journey. God told Abraham to go to a place. He said, where do you want me to go? He said, I'll show you when you get there. I'll tell you when you get there. Now, we have these things called GPSs. Right? We have these things called GPSs that gets us everywhere. Pretty much, they're fairly accurate. So when Abraham was sent by God, he used the GPS. It was God's positioning system. Go where I'll let you know when you get there. And we told you from the beginning, some people, there's some here, I won't mention their names. Some here just get up in the morning and say, okay, we're going to wherever. And we got a plan. We wanted the hotels planned out. We wanted the trip planned out. 2 years ago, we went out west. We planned it all out. What flight we're going to take, and rental car, where we're going to go, and what days we're going to go here, and what days we're going to go there. We just like to do that. Some people don't. God told Abraham, just get out of here. Take your family. Anybody remember about how many people Abraham took with him? How about 70? So 70 people. His family was 70. And then God told him later, I'm going to make your family as the sands of the sea. How many have been on a beach? How many had the sand in between your toes? And in your nose, and everywhere, it gets everywhere. The kids get it in their hair and everything else. Well, you know how many things of sand. So, here, if you read Genesis chapter 23, verses 1 through 20, the death of Sarah.
And Sarah was 107 and 20 years old. These were the years of the life of Sarah. And Sarah died in Kirjath Arba, the same is Hebron, in the land of Canaan. And Abraham came to mourn for Sarah and to weep for her. And Abraham stood up from before his dead and spake unto the sons of Heth, saying, I am a stranger and a sojourner with you. Give me a possession of a burying place with you, that I may bury my dead out of my sight. And the children of Heth answered Abraham, saying unto him, Hear us, my lord, thou art a mighty prince among us. In the choice of our sepulchres bury thy dead. None of us shall withhold from thee his sepulchre, but that thou mayest bury thy dead. And Abraham stood up and bowed himself to the people of the land, even to the children of Heth. And he communed with them, saying, If it be your mind that I should bury my dead out of my sight, hear me, and entreat for me to Ephron the son of Zohar, that he may give me the cave of Machpelah, which he hath, which is in the end of his field. For as much money as it is worth, he shall give it me for a possession of a burying place amongst you. And Ephron dwelt among the children of Heth, and Ephron the Hittite answered Abraham in the audience of the children of Heth, even of all that went in at the gate of his city, saying, Nay, my lord, hear me. The field give I thee, and the cave that is therein I give it thee. In the presence of the sons of my people give it I thee. Bury thy dead. And Abraham bowed down himself before the people of the land. And he spake unto Ephron in the audience of the people of the land, saying, But if thou wilt give it, I pray thee hear me. I will give thee money for the field. Take it of me, and I will bury my dead there. And Ephron answered Abraham, saying unto him, My lord, hearken unto me. The land is worth 400 shekels of silver. What is that betwixt me and thee? Bury therefore thy dead. And Abraham hearkened unto Ephron, and Abraham weighed to Ephron the silver which he had named in the audience of the sons of Heth, 400 shekels of silver, current money with the merchant. And the field of Ephron, which was in Machpelah, which was before Mamre, the field and the cave which was therein, and all the trees that were in the field, that were in all the borders round about, were made sure. Unto Abraham for a possession in the presence of the children of Heth, before all that went in at the gate of his city. And after this, Abraham buried Sarah his wife in the cave of the field of Machpelah before Mamre. The same is Hebron in the land of Canaan. And the field and the cave that is therein were made sure unto Abraham for a possession of a burying place by the sons of Heth.
So before I want to tell you this now because I'll forget. How much did Abraham pay for this land?
700.
How many shekels was it?
700.
Shekels. Now, I found out this week, because I'll forget later if I get going, that what they did is they gather all these people together and they count out this silver in a public place. So either side can't say, much like what we do, you buy a house, they recommend getting paper signed, you buy something, you have paper signed, if you sell something. We sold our camper, we filled out a form, and us and the other guys filled it out, got a copy, that it was as is and all this other stuff. So they made it big public to do this. He wanted a cave. But they said, well, they took advantage of him because they knew he needed something, just like other, when you go to the funeral home and get things, they jack the price up when you need it. They did on my father-in-law because he bought his and Becky's mom's casket vaults the same day because he said if you wait, it was $700 in, but if you wait till you need it, it's $1,000. I think that should be illegal anyway. So they knew he needed it and wanted it. So they said, what they did instead of saying you can have the cave, what they did is said, you got to buy all this land too. I found out something that blew my mind. I don't have much left, but it still blew my mind. How many already know I don't have much left? Right now? 400 shekels of silver back then. How long ago was that? $100,000 to $200,000 in today's money. Now I was going to ask, how many husbands would pay take their wives worth $100,000, but I'm not going to do that because somebody will get in trouble. But $100,000 they paid for this land, Abraham, because he wanted it, because he loved his wife. We're listening to a preacher on the way to church this morning, and he said, people ask you how long they've been married. He said, I tell everybody I've been married 16 wonderful years and 2 others. You figure that out. Solomon wrote, a good name is better than precious ointment. And he said, and the day of death, now listen to this, yes, we don't like death, is better than the day of one's birth. Now we as Christians, in Ecclesiastes chapter 7, we as Christians look forward to heaven because one of these days the Lord's coming back. We're either going to die or the Lord's going to come back and He's going to take us out. We've said this so many times. It could be today. By the way, your visitors, if you have a bulletin on the back, there's things to fill out. If you don't, somebody's sitting by them, if they don't have one, if you can grab them one, if they'd like to fill that out. We got to go to heaven. If the Lord came back today, we have this ceiling. We told you there's a gap about this much from the old ceiling when we redid this 25 years ago. Added on the auditorium, added on the building. We put this drop ceiling in, and Joe put this thing in and did a good job of it. But if we go through, if the Lord came back, we'd go through this one. We'd go through the next ceiling, which there's a bunch of rock wool insulation. It's itchy. And then there's a roof that 2 years ago when the tornado or when the storm tore off a bunch of our roof, we had to get a new roof put on. There's all kinds of nails up there sticking through the boards. I've been up there. We'd go through it all, but we'd be in heaven. But he also said there's a good name. Now, you've all known people in history who have, you could know their name, you say something about them, you would know them, but what they did. Individuals like Judas Iscariot, Pontius Pilate, Adolf Hitler, Abraham Lincoln. The list could go on and on and on. You could list people who in history, you mention their name. When I say my name's Borden, they always ask me if I'm related to Lizzie Borden. I say yes. We ordered something from Menards, and it came in the other day. I get a call while we're up in Michigan. It was Kim Borden from Bedford. I didn't know there was any Bordens in Bedford. They put my order in with hers. So they brought it back up here and gave it to him, so we got to go out to Menards and pick it up. But people ask me if I'm related to Lizzie Borden. I say yes, she was my dad's great-great-aunt. I guess that makes her my great-great-great-aunt. And so that's not too, they always say that's not too much of a good name to do. They have, the Borden house has been turned into a bed and breakfast. And I asked Becky if she'd go up there and stay. She said a little two-letter word that starts with an N and ends with an O. She said, no, absolutely not. I'd love to go up there. Anyway, faith in the dark. We're coming to a time in the end, and first of all we see there's a time of tears. Now, tears, we know when somebody's groaning and grieving, there's a lot of tears. A lot of tears are shed when you lose a loved one. It doesn't matter who they are, but God is still there. God made us with the ability to weep. Do you realize that grieving is a good thing? From what I understand, from what I have read, that if you did not grieve and cry, your body would have a lot of problems, internal. Because the grieving and the crying process releases tension. It releases pressure. Now, I know women are more prone to cry than men. God made them that way. My wife always uses the phrase, I'm the weaker vessel. God did make women weaker physically. They do cry at the drop of a hat. Some men do the same thing, but women too. But God made these women, you women, like that because you have the ability to do a lot of things. But grieving, we need to grieve. It's part of our DNA. We have to grieve. So these are the first recorded tears in the Bible. When we have Vacation Bible School or do a Bible quiz or something, and we tell the kids to give us a verse, guess which ones the kids always go to? They always quote, Jesus wept. That's easy to remember. 2 words. Give me a Bible verse. Jesus wept. Well, didn't say any particular one. Psalm 73:24 says, Thou shalt guide me with the counsel, and afterward receive me to glory. So Abraham, you know, like I said, he loved his wife. He had traveled, they traveled together all these years, probably hundreds and thousands of miles, and not like we do. We can get on a plane. When my mom was alive, Butch, we could get on a plane and be down in Florida in 2.5 hours. Get on that Southwest airline and take off. And Becky hated the takeoffs and hated the landings. She didn't like when they took off because it pushed you back. And when they landed, she sat there and she grabbed my leg and pushed on my leg and she pushed her feet in the floor. I don't know if that helped the brakes or not, but she did not like those reverse thrusters. But we could get on a plane, be all the way down to Florida in 2.5 hours. We flew all the way out. The first stop when we were out west, Vegas. We'd go there in 3 hours. We went to when Ryan lived in Phoenix. We'd fly out there. It'd take about 3.5 hours. Well, that's not very long. Get in a car. Yeah, a few hours, 12 hours. Dale and Ernie used to get in the car, drive straight down to Florida, 12 hours, and get down there. Dale didn't like to stop, didn't like to spend the night, so they just drive all the way down. But imagine walking that far. Imagine walking that far. When we were all younger, we probably walked more than we ever thought we would. I'm serious. Dave, doing hunting, mushrooms, whatever it was. Jim lived on a farm. They didn't have these watches like we have now that keep track of your steps. I've already got almost 1,000 steps in here this morning. Back and forth, and back and forth, and back and forth. Everybody chasing them, just walking around. They didn't have that then. Imagine all the distances that Sarah followed her husband. Boy, you talk about a dedicated wife. And then verse 3 through 6 says a time for testimony. We cannot mourn forever. There comes a time that we have to accept what happens. Well, Abraham's at this point. He's accepted what's happening. So Abraham requested a place to bury Sarah. And that's what they did in those days. They said they want a place away from here. That was common. That was a common thing. Now we have the modern places. I don't know how many graveyards are in Bloomington. I mean, they're all over the place. There are several. There's thousands of people buried, probably. I know where Hody Carmichael's buried. He was a famous musician from IU. I've seen his grave out there. I know where I've done funerals all over town. I've done funerals all the way out to Carmichael Cemetery when Herman Hayes died in 1986. I don't know if I'm going any farther than that, but there's places all over here to be buried. I told my wife, why don't you just save some money, put me in a cardboard box, bury me in the backyard. I'm going to heaven anyway. The moment I die, Paul said to be absent from the body is what? To be present with the Lord. It doesn't say their soul sleeps like some teach. He said to be absent from the body is present with the Lord. The tense in the verb in the Greek language, it's now. When you die, it's now. You're with the Lord. Wow. I've got a book. I told you I got a book in my office that has all kinds of testimonies of people who are saved. And as they're dying, D.L. Moody saw his uncle Iro, and he saw Jesus. He saw the light as he was dying. He saw heaven. And they said, I see it all. I've got indications. There's stories in that book where people who are not Christians in hospital beds, and as they're dying, they're screaming in pain because they said, my feet are burning, my legs are not burning. And they're conscious enough during that time, short time, that there's testimonies that there are people who are dying and going into hell. So Abraham's at this point. He's at this point where he's going to say, okay, I need to find a place for Sarah. Now, I don't know how they conducted their funerals back then. We might have visitation for 1 or 2 or 3 days. We might have people come in, and maybe they'll wait for a while because everybody can't get together. There are people and friends all over the place. When Miriam's husband, Marvin, died, they're going to wait till this summer to have a memorial. There's so many friends. He was a teacher and a coach, and so many people knew him. But we do all these, I don't want to call them ceremonies, but we say our goodbyes. And we put them in a casket, and we walk up the last time and say goodbye. And then we know, as Christians, we're going to get to see them again. So Abraham's got this all set up and everything. So keep in mind that although he had been given the land by God, and I understand that, but he had a different place. He had not fully possessed it. It was possessed by someone else. So that's why he had to go buy him some plots. And we do the same thing. So he requested of them to a place to put his deceased wife. So look at this next thing, this next slide. The men of the land called Abraham mighty prince. And Sarah, that means she was a princess. The testimony that Abraham had, the mighty prince. Every one of us have people who watch us, who see what we do. I guarantee you, even if you don't know it, I guarantee you 100% that you have neighbors who watch your comings and goings on Sunday. They see you. You have relatives who watch your actions. And boy, how do we know? How have you ever slipped up and did something or said something or a wrong action or something around somebody that's close to you? Raise your hand. Every hand ought to go up. What do they say? You're supposed to be a Christian. If you're perfect, raise your hand. How come there's no hands going up? We are imperfect. But those around us, they look at us and say, you're not supposed to do that. I told you many times, my brother, he was born again years ago. Doesn't go to church now. But every time a Christian, somebody does something, he said, they say they're a Christian. And what have I told you? I always tell him, you too are a Christian. You're going to have to answer one day for what you do. Guess what he does? You ever had somebody change the subject? You ever had somebody change the subject? I know, I was there. The pastor led my brother to the Lord. He got saved. He went to church for a long time. His wife went to church in Georgia, and something happened in that church, and they haven't gone since. But because Abraham showed them how good a man he was, look at this next slide. He had a good testimony among them, and they respected him. No, we're not perfect. But our family and close friends, they watch everything we do. They watch everything we do. When we go to a restaurant and they try to seat us in the bar, what do we tell them, Joyce? She's been there with us many times. Nope. Don't want to seat in the bar. I don't care if I got to wait 20 minutes. If we got to wait 20 minutes, my wife says, let's go somewhere else. But they say, are you over 21? I'm tempted to say no. I mean, look at me. You got to ask me if I'm over 21? Yes, I'm over 21. 48 years over 21. In a couple weeks, I'll be 69. But they say, you want to sit in the bar? Nope. Why? One of your friends, if we sat in the bar, I guarantee it, 100%, 110%. One of your friends are going to see us, and they're going to come back to you and say, guess where your pastor was? He was in the bar. I saw him. And he had a drink in his hand. The best kind's Pepsi. I know some of you like Coke. You can be wrong. It's okay. But they would say, we saw your pastor and he was in the bar. Yeah, that's all I need. No, we do not get seated in the bar. I don't care how long we have to wait. Too bad. Tough. Bananas. You have a testimony. Abraham had a testimony. We're reminded of the importance of maintaining this good testimony. Now, I'm not telling you you need to be perfect. They didn't believe in, these people didn't believe or worship God, but they saw Abraham do that. And you may never know it in your life, but you may have a friend or relative or family member who has watched your testimony, and they might get saved because of that, and you may not know it. They may get saved after you're gone. But they watch us. They watch us all the time. And they let us know if we slip up. They offered him his choice of his own tomb to use. But like I said, he had to get some other place. So look at this real quickly. A time of strength, verses 7 through 16. He requested the cave at Machpelah. Now, why? I don't know. If you put 5 women or 5 men in a store of men's clothes or women's clothes, most likely, now me and Jim are almost twins today. I wore my 10 Commandments tie. Jim's got his 10 Commandments tie. But he said mine's, he didn't say it's too bright, he said yours is a little brighter than mine. But if you took 5 men and 5 women, and you told 5 men to pick out their clothes, they would probably pick out 5 different things. In 5 minutes it'll be done. You take 5 women, they're going to pick out 5 things, but it might be 5 hours. No offense, women, but that's how it is out. But they're all going to be different, probably. Why? We don't want to look like everybody else. Why did he want this cave? Maybe the Lord wanted him to pick it. I don't know. But he wanted the cave he wanted to. So he would, this would serve Abraham purposes. He wanted to do what he did. It was over in it was owned by Ephraim, like I said. Abraham allowed Ephraim to set the price. And as I said in the beginning, they did this out in public, so nobody could say. And I saw when I was researching it, they showed a picture of men here and all these people counting out these shekels of silver. Counting out, so it had witnesses. Why? How many of you know a human being that tells lies? Raise your hand. I won't ask you to raise your hand if you ever told a lie. We all have. But we know people who lie, who deceive, who tell the stories different ways. Everybody sees different things. I've been here when the ladies have had things and played that game where somebody walks in with a suitcase and they let it fall open and all this stuff falls down. And all this stuff falls out of the suitcase. He's been telling me he's going to come. He showed up. All this stuff falls out of the suitcase, and they pick it up real quick and they ask you, what did you see? Connie might see 14 things, and somebody else might see 6, different 6, and somebody else might see 3. When my wife worked at the banks, they told them that when she was a teller, they said, pay attention to everyone that comes up to your window. My wife could tell you the color of their eyes and whether their eyelashes were curly or straight. But they said, pay attention to their height, because that would be an indicator if they did something. And by the doors, in a lot of places, they have these charts by the doors. It's not just to decorate the doorway. And so if I walked out, they'd see that I'm a little over 6 foot tall. But if Dave walked out, it's 4'3". No, not that short. But they'd see those numbers, and they said, and Becky said she always, my wife always, she can just about instantly tell you when she meets somebody if you've got curly hair or straight hair. Curly eyelashes or straight eyelashes will tell you what color your eyes are. That's the first thing she looks at. That's the first thing she looks at. That's just my wife. It's the details. That's what she did. So they practice that at the bank. So this verse was an opportunity to make profit at the expense of Abraham's grief. Yeah. Like I said, you go to the funeral home and they got you. You're grieving. You're doing this. I worked at Owens Electric course for 15 years, and we did things for Sexton Vault. And the vault company said whether there's a seal in the vault or not, water's going to get in or whatever. They'd say, well, you don't want a plain vault. You want your loved one to be a colored one, so that costs more money. And you don't want this seal. We got one that's better, and that costs more money. Well, you're grieving. What are you usually going to do? You're going to spend some more money because it makes you feel guilty. Anyway, it's this grief time. So, look at this next slide. It's a time of faith, verses 17 to 20. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Now, Sarah is being buried by Abraham, her husband. Next week we're going to see Abraham's death. But Sarah was such a princess that if you look in Hebrews chapter 11, which we call the faith chapter, she is mentioned there too. She is mentioned in the faith chapter. She was such a good wife. She was such a good person. Now, I'll ask you before we talk about her anymore and finish this out. Was Sarah a perfect person? Well, she laughed at God. You're going to let me have a child at this age? Yeah. Tell me another story. Almost 100 years old, you're going to let me have a child? Well, in this whole thing intertwined was faith. This was not just a burying place for Sarah, but it was to be a family tomb. Faith. Abraham, Isaac, Rebekah, Leah, and Jacob were buried there. A family place. Now we do that. We have our plots at Clear Creek Cemetery. The guy who was at that time selling our plots, at that time there were $350 in the old part, and he said there was no plots in the old part several years ago. He said you got to pay $450 in this new part. So if you look at their utility building, right across the road is two empty plots, and that's mine and Becky's, and we've told the kids if you want to drive by and just throw firecrackers, that's okay. You don't have to get out. But that's where ours is. But later we found out that there were, because I know several people who I did funerals for in the old place, found out there were plots in the cheaper place. Guess what that guy got for selling them? C-O-M-M-I-S-S-I-O-N. Commission. Guess who got fired? Because he lied to people. For a commission. But we have our place that we're going to be buried. We don't have anything else done as far as that goes. But we have our place that we want to be buried at Clear Creek Cemetery. So this also testifies of Abraham's respect for the dead. Now, the Old Testament Jews and the New Testament Christians handled the death of a loved one basically in similar manner. We do all kinds of things now. It's a little different. But while the heathen people would just cremate their loved ones, and I've been asked over the years, is there anything in the Bible against cremation? I find nothing in the Bible against cremation. Some here have already told me they're going to be cremated. Some have already been cremated. I find nothing negative in the Bible about cremation. I find nothing. The Bible doesn't mention it. Here's my perspective on it. When you die, what does the Bible say? From dust thou art to what? To dust thou shalt return. Whether it's in cremation, fast or slow, you're going to turn to dust. Like the one lady said, she said, I don't like to clean the dust out from under my bed. It might be one of my relatives. That's probably not happening. But we're going to turn to dust. It doesn't matter. Cremation is not forbidden in the Bible. But that's what the heathen did. But the Old Testament Jews and the Christians, they formally buried their dead. We just got done with Easter. Jesus was put in that tomb. What did he do? They looked in there, what was there? His burial clothes were still in like he was in them. The only thing was on the side was the napkin, was the headpiece. Jesus came out of that place. He came out of the grave. He moved that. That stone didn't stop him. He got out of there. So Abraham was making a statement of his faith. He did not return her to his former homeland in Ur. Look at this last slide. He buried her in the land that God had given to him and his descendants. A few years ago, told you many times, Benjamin Netanyahu, who was the Prime Minister of Israel, he held up a Bible and he said, they asked me for a deed for this land, and he said, here it is. I saw the video more than once. He said, here's my deed. Here it is. It's written right here. Because God gave it to him. What a gift. Ruth talked about her blessings. Getting her car fixed. It's not being able to sell the truck. Getting her air conditioner. We don't like when things break down. We don't like, especially our car, and the air conditioner, and your house or your furnace, and they always break down. Your furnaces break down in the winter, and the air conditioners break down in the summer. Am I right, Dana? Yeah. Do you know anybody who does that? Like I said, Bill had to come over and fix ours. He said, I want to get it cool for you and Becky by the time you get back. And I appreciate that, and I need to know how much I owe him. Becky was going to write you a check today, Dana, and Bill won't tell me how much I owe him. You get on it. So, there are times, like we said, everything's different. There are times that we all look at impossible situations, and we don't know how we're going to get through it. I told you I could tell you about a miracle. I'll tell you about that real quick. We're listening to Jonathan this week. Jonathan Evans. And he said when he was in college, him and some friends went down to another college, and there was some kind of party or something like that. And they were driving back, and it was 2 o'clock in the morning that Jonathan was driving. How many of your eyes, when you're driving late at night, how many of your eyes get real heavy? He said, my eyes, he said the other 2 guys were sleeping in the car, and he said, my eyes were getting real heavy. And he said, I wanted to get back though, and we laid down, and we were gone 8 days up to Michigan, and we laid down in our bed last night, and my wife said, there's no place like my own bed. I don't care what somebody else has, what hotel has. The only more comfortable bed I've ever slept on, we went to see Ryan Michelle one time. There's a Holiday Inn down in Tennessee. And I looked up I looked at the name of that mattress, and I looked up the name of it. It was the most comfortable mattress I ever slept on in a hotel. And they were only $2,000, so that's why I don't have one. They were only $2,000, so that's why I did not have one of those. And I'm not going to get one. That was years ago, probably a lot more than that. But Jonathan was driving. He said, my eyes got real heavy. He said, I apparently fell asleep. And he said they were in one of those areas where they got the block, they're doing construction, they got a wall on both sides. And you only have a little bit, boy, when you're driving that, it seems like there's that much room, but there's really about that much room on each side, because I looked at him. And he said all of a sudden, there was a pow! And he said it was like a bomb. And he said he stopped the car, and he said those 2 guys woke up real fast. And he woke up real fast, and he said they got out and looked. And he said they must have hit the wall, they did something. He said they looked all around that car, and they had to stop traffic. He said they looked under the car, they looked at both walls, and there was no marks, and the car wasn't hurt. And he was talking about, in the message, about Jacob's ladder. He said an angel had to come down there, and we had to run into an angel. He said God used an angel to stop us and wake us up. Because God does use whatever it takes. He will use whatever it takes for us. And he said, I thank the Lord for that. He said, I stayed awake the rest of the way home. But he said, I know God performed a miracle. And he does that all the time. He did that with Sarah. He did that with Abraham. He performed miracles. When you're almost 100 years old and you have a child, it's going to be a miracle. Unlike that lady a few years ago from Italy, she was 75 years old, got artificial inseminated, and had a child. Connie, would you want to have a child now? Are you glad your grandkids are grown up? She had a time when she babysat her triplets. They're mid-20s now. But she had a time with 3 of them. She said she opened the refrigerator, 6 hands went in there after food. Anyway, here's this faith. We're talking about the faith of Abraham. Our faith has to be just as strong today. The devil doesn't like us any more than he liked Abraham. And Satan is after every one of us. Faith cometh by hearing, and hearing by the word of God. Our Heavenly Father, we're about to come to the end of this series. And we have talked all the way through this series, 15 sermons now on faith, on how great our faith should be, on how Abraham trusted you in everything he did. You sent him to a strange place. You've had all kinds of things happen to him. He has had angels unaware come and speak to him. He's had people come and he's had events happen. He's had people do things to him and he's done things for them. He had to take his son and nearly sacrifice him, but you performed a miracle then. Abraham looked all over for a sacrifice. There wasn't one there. And then when he started to raise the sword against his son, there was a ram that you placed there. So Father, bless us, teach us through this series of how our faith can be increased, how it can be settled and true, and we need strong faith. Bless those around us, Father. There are people who are watching us, as we talked about. We all have people who need to be saved. May we be a testimony to each one. And all God's people said, amen.